If you are considering a move to Arizona and are searching for honest answers to your most searched questions, from the cost of living to the job market to our weather and some of our unique aspects like our wildlife, then this video is for you. Today I'm sharing 5 things that you really need to know before you consider moving to Arizona, including a few questions that no one ever asks, but many should. Because moving to a new state can be completely overwhelming, and making the right decision could be the difference between living your dream life and living an absolute nightmare. And these 5 topics are going to help you make the right decision before you decide to call Arizona home. If this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything about living in Scottsdale, Arizona, then subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market in Scottsdale, Arizona. My name is Gina and I'm with Relocating to Scottsdale, and every day we get calls from people just like you. So whether you're making a move in 9 days or 9 months, all of my contact info is in that box below. Please reach out. I'd love to help you make a smooth move to Scottsdale, Arizona. Now let's take a closer look to Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, I know that picking up your entire life and moving it to a brand new state is a big decision and not an easy one. You'll ask, where are we going to live? Is it safe? How are the schools? And although when I originally moved to Arizona, it was 2005, and I lived here for about 4 years, moved back to California. And when I returned a few years later, my husband and I were worried about some of the same things. And when I talk to my buyers, it is still their main concerns, along with some like, how hot does it really get? Now, we are both originally from California, and it did get hot there because we were inland, but it's just a very different hot than it is here in the Scottsdale and Phoenix Valley. We were also worried about critters as well, mostly scorpions and wildlife since we have dogs. And I wanted to make sure that they were safe too. We also wanted to live in a safe area where we felt really safe since we have kids. We wanted great schools for them as well. And now thinking back to all our concerns, I would say for the most part, what we were worried about didn't end up being that big of a deal. So that being said, I do think all of these questions are ones that should be asked, at least to get more information, because everyone's perception is different, and something that is not a big deal to one person could be an absolute deal breaker for someone else. And now as I go through all of this, it is impossible for me to answer every single question, and I might even bring up something that you hadn't thought about, which brings up additional questions that you didn't even know you had. And if that's the case, make sure to leave a comment down below and I'll answer these questions. So first up is our weather. And it's no secret that Arizona gets a lot of sun. In fact, it's usually one of the reasons that brings people to Arizona. They really want more sun. Wherever they live is probably gray and dark and rainy, or it snows a lot and they're tired of shoveling the snow. The reality is, here we get over 300 days of sunshine and we don't get much rain. Now here's the brutal honesty about our weather. We have about 8 months of fantastic weather and about 4 months that are pretty intense. During these 4 months, the temperatures can be at least 100. And sometimes we'll have stretches of 110, 115, day after day, and our nights don't really cool down much. Sometimes we'll get down into the 90s. Sometimes it's 95, but that's probably the lowest it ever gets in the evenings in the summer. So we don't cool down that much. So you're not able to open your windows or turn your AC off. So your air conditioning is running 24/7 in the summer. So for those that move here from the really snowy gray climates, this heat really doesn't seem to bother my clients too much. And they tell me every year when everyone's complaining about the heat, I will take this over the snow, gray, ice, cold weather every day. They just don't mind it. But during our summer, when the heat is the most intense, you will hear people say that it feels like you're being put in a hot oven when you walk outside, or feels like you got hit in the face with a blow dryer. And I'm not going to lie, it kind of does feel like that. But it's also a very dry heat. So you don't have to deal with a lot of humidity, which I think in the summertime, the humidity can make things feel hotter, so it's great that we don't really have to deal with that. But right in the middle of our summer season, we do have something called monsoon season. This is something that many people don't ask about, but it's something that everyone should learn about. And if you Google it, you'll see that it's a heavy rain and wind, and they come quickly and they leave quickly. You just have to be ready for when they hit, because you need to tie down all the umbrellas and all the things in your yard that can blow away. Here in Scottsdale and Phoenix and the surrounding areas, we also get dust storms, where it's a wall of dust that blows all the way across the desert floor and makes everything really dirty. And you will hear these also called haboos. And if you're driving in one of these, it's really bad. You might have to pull over and just wait for it to pass, depending on where you live in the valley. You will experience more of these than other parts of the valley. Like, I live in North Scottsdale, and although we might see them coming, we don't get that big, gigantic wall of dust because I live about south of Desert Ridge. So it's not that much flat desert land around me. We will get some of the dust, but it's not as intense as if you're living down on the flat valley land. All in all, these really are just kind of a nuisance. They make everything really dirty, and you'll want to go get your car washed as soon as possible, and you'll have to clean up your backyard and all of your outdoor patio furniture. They're just going to be really super dusty and dirty. Now, if we do get rain with these monsoons, it does drop our temperatures a bit, which everybody loves. But here's a little caveat to that, is it will drop our temperature for a short amount of time. And if we're lucky, it'll be an hour, hour and a half. And then once the rain is over, our temperatures heat back up. And because now we have all the moisture, our humidity also goes up. And when this happens, I kind of use the term oppressive, because the humidity just feels like that warm hot blanket on you now during these times. But just to be clear, the humidity can get to be about 40 to 50%. And for those of you that live in extreme humid climates, might be looking at me like, you're crazy, that's not humid, which I've heard. But for us Arizonians, it feels really, really humid. So it's something to know about. Also, you need to be careful because trees can get knocked down and branches can break and fall down during these storms. And you will often see a lot of city workers out kind of removing the trees and limbs that have fallen down. Something else that people don't really ask about and don't really expect, if I'm being honest, is how cold we get in the short periods of time during our winter. Again, for those coming from really, really cold places, when you get to like 0, this is not going to be that cold. But we can see a few weeks during our winters where our highs get to be about 50, and we'll see temperatures during that night at 30 to below freezing sometimes. And again, this is not something that happens all across the valley, but if you're living in a little higher elevation in the North Scottsdale, Cave Creek, Carefree area, we will see temperatures below freezing, and a few times in the winter. And we've also had a few times where we've actually had snowfall and stick for a couple hours during this time. It's funny because it's the talk of the town when it does happen, but it can get pretty cold for us. Another one of those things that many people don't think about when it comes to our weather and rain, because we don't get that much of it, is flooding. Flooding can be a concern. Now, I only bring this up because depending on where you are looking to buy, we do have flood zones, and there are homes that are built within the flood zone. A lender is going to require you to have flood insurance, and the seller or the seller's agent will likely have to provide you an elevation certificate. Overall, to have flood insurance is just going to cost you a little bit more money, and when you buy a home, it's just something to think about. And it's not something that you want to find out once you're in escrow. And then now when I talk about flood zones, the next question that I always get is how many houses are actually flood zones? If you guys get that kind of rain, and honestly, I do not know of one house that has flooded due to rainwater. This is something that FEMA has put in place, and unfortunately, you will just have to abide by those rules. And if you don't choose to put your own flood insurance on the home, the lender will put it on there for you, and it's not going to be cheap. I can tell you that. So there are some places in the North Scottsdale areas that are considered a flood zone. And the city of Scottsdale has some plans coming to redirect some of those washes up there. So some of those homes that are in the flood plains right now or in those flood zones will likely come out of those flood zones. When that's going to happen, I am not sure. We'll just have to keep our eye on that. So the next one is our traffic. Now, the biggest reason that I have people asking about traffic is because they've read all over the internet that our traffic is bad here. But many of the people that I'm talking to are coming from larger cities like San Francisco, LA, or New York. And our traffic here is nothing like that in reality or compared to that. So me coming from the Bay Area, I always kind of giggle when there's traffic because it's not at all as bad as it was there. The reality is that our city has been growing pretty substantially for years, and since 2020, it has grown exponentially. We have seen quite a bit of population growth since 2020, and with more people comes more traffic. But right now, what's causing a lot of our traffic is all the construction projects that they have going on our freeways and roads to expand them, to make room for all the additional people on the 101 freeway. So by my house, they're actually widening the 101 freeway. But unfortunately, right now, that means that they've got to take down one lane so that they can actually widen it. So it's a mess right now. And I agree with everyone that is complaining about it. It causes a lot of traffic. But I just try to keep thinking about how great it's going to be when they actually open it up again. Also, people here do drive much faster than other states. So you have to be ready. So even if the speed limit is posted at 45, we are usually driving 55 or 60 or more. And that is not just on the freeway, that's on the main streets as well. Something else the city of Scottsdale is doing is they're putting in a lot more roundabouts. And if you look at the city of Scottsdale website, they state that we are a roundabout city first, which means that if a roundabout can be put in instead of a signal, they're going to be putting in a roundabout. They're stating that from the studies they've done, there are less accidents in roundabouts rather than signals. You can also see from the websites all the roundabouts that are currently in place and the few that they have coming. Now, safer is better, but in the meantime, as people are getting used to all these roundabouts, which we did not have just a few years ago, driving through them can be a little bit of a challenge. Right now, one of the other things that really contributes to some of our traffic is all the visitors and tourists that we have during those peak months of beautiful weather. The number of people that come to Arizona during our winter months is huge. This is what we consider our snowbird season. So this could be those people that own second homes here, or those people that come and rent homes here for several months out of the year, and they just want to come and be out of the weather, like the snow, and enjoy the beautiful weather here. But with that brings more people and again, more traffic. And when people come to visit, they're not fully second homeowners and kind of don't know their way around a little bit. They usually don't know where they're going always, so this does clog up the roads a bit. During this time, you just have to have as much patience as you can because they just don't know where they're going. The expansions on our freeways is not isolated to the Phoenix area alone. They have also been working on an expansion project on the I-17 that's going north up into Flagstaff as well. Okay, now the fact that you made it this far in the video and possibly subscribed to the channel means that you are really considering a move to Arizona. And because of that, we have to talk about the cost of living. Now, for a long time, Arizona was looked at as a very affordable place to live, even when people were coming to Scottsdale or Paradise Valley for that matter, which are more affluent areas in Arizona, found it to be pretty affordable for what you were looking to buy. And that level of affordability has changed since 2020, kind of like everywhere else in the country. And some that come here are surprised that the wealth in the state and the number of wealthy and high net worth individuals that choose to call Arizona home. The fact is that Arizona is number 3 in the US for attracting these types of individuals. And in this article, they said Arizona's allure lies in its beneficial tax structures, thriving business environment, and irresistible lifestyle. These fiscal advantages with the beauty of our sun-drenched landscape and abundant opportunities have made Arizona a magnet for wealth and prosperity. And because of this, we have seen our home prices explode, and many people have sold homes in other areas where it's more expensive to live and come here and paid cash for their home. And we have seen this happen time and time again over the past few years. When you look at the overall affordability of the state, we are ranked 16th in the US, and our median home price here in Phoenix right now is around $550. If you're looking to move to Scottsdale, I will tell you it can be very hard to find a home in those price points now in Scottsdale, which is why it's so important for you to be talking to someone who has a lot of knowledge and knows the area. Also, our luxury market here is still exploding, and some of the best news that I've ever got to share with buyers is about our property taxes. We are ranked the 10th lowest in property taxes. I will be out with buyer and they'll ask me, so what are the taxes on this house? And when I tell them usually their jaw drops and hits the floor. And let me just give you a couple examples. On a $750,000 single family home, you're going to pay about $2,200 a year. And on a $2 million single family home, you're going to pay about $6,000 a year. Now, there are some exceptions to this, like if the community has a CFD, which is an additional line item on your tax bill, which will make your taxes go up just a little bit. But all in all, that gives you a pretty good idea what our taxes are. And when I tell people what the taxes are, again, their jaw usually hits the floor. And they tell me the astronomical amount of money that they're paying for taxes now is like $5,000 to $120,000 for the year. So for that, just on the property taxes alone, it's a huge saving. Okay, so let's talk about the jobs here, because contrary to popular belief, Arizona as a whole, and Phoenix and Scottsdale specifically, are not just for retirees anymore. And our job market is booming. Our overall job landscape has changed pretty drastically since the great financial crisis. Now, we are being called the Silicon Desert because of all the high-tech jobs coming into the valley, as well as all the manufacturing, and most of the jobs that are coming are all high-paying jobs, something that we saw a lot during COVID, where companies that made the decision to leave the state that they were in to come to Arizona because of our friendlier business practices. And that has really helped and continues to help with all the job growth. And the big companies that have been in the news for a while is TSMC. Now, their original plan were only going to build one semiconductor plant, but since then they have decided to expand and plan on building additionals. And because of that, all of our growth in the semiconductor and manufacturing space here, we have all of these additional companies that are moving into the valley that are going to support all of these semiconductor and manufacturing businesses, which just brings additional more jobs into the state. Now, this type of job growth is contributing to a few areas as emerging luxury marketplaces like Peoria starting to have more and more $1 million homes pop up every day. Overall, tech is big here, as well as medical manufacturing, finance, engineering, and there are some of the top drivers for our overall employment here in Arizona. Now for the fun part. So living around, and remember what I said, I could not imagine myself living with scorpions, and I was concerned about the dogs as well. But the animals that live in the area, you'll probably come across things like bobcats and coyotes. You're gonna see some snakes and of course scorpions. We have javelinas, and depending on where you live, you might not see any of these animals. We have owls and hawks as well. These are all going to be more prevalent in certain areas and places like where I live, North Scottsdale. My mom has bobcats in her backyard. I do see coyotes running around my neighborhood sometimes. On certain spots when you're hiking, you're gonna see some snakes, but these are not something that I see every day. Sometimes I do have an owl in my backyard, but if you go more north, like North Scottsdale or Cave Creek, or where there's like new construction, so the soil is being turned up, these are all more prevalent out there because there's more open wide spaces, and then you're digging up the dirt, so you're gonna run into more scorpions. and more wildlife. I have learned to live with them, and I'm very aware of my surroundings. So if I'm out hiking, I keep an eye out for the snake. I'm very careful around some bushes, and I know the times during the year that I need to be extra careful about certain animals. You just kind of learn your surroundings. But I also pay very close attention to where I am, and I have seen a few coyotes, like I said, run in my neighborhood. So if I hear about it or see it, I kind of just take the dogs back inside, but it's super rare. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I didn't touch on as much as I could. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.